Growth can come in a number of different ways, additional seat licenses. And so customer success is uniquely positioned within an organization to be able to help identify those opportunities to expand. And in fact, that is where the primary value of customer success lives. If they're not doing that, then I would question why you even have a customer success team to begin with.
Coffee's for closers only.
So we've established my proposal is sound in principle. Now we're just haggling over price.
Let's see how much we're going for on eBay.
Man, it's the same as Dunkin' Donuts. Costs 15 times the price.
Welcome to Impact Pricing, the podcast where we discuss pricing, value, and the awesome relationship between them. I'm Mark Stiving, and today our guest is Jay Nathan. Here are 3 things you want to know about Jay before we start. He is founder and managing partner of Customer Imperative, a company focused on SaaS revenue growth. Just that gets me excited. He has a background in product management, a role that I empathize and respect a ton. And his most recent real job was as an executive in customer success. Welcome, Jay.
Thanks for having me, Mark. Great to be here.
This is going to be fun. I think you're my first customer success guest.
Oh, wow.
And yet,
that's surprising.
I know. And yet I respect that role a ton. For all of our pricing and product manager listeners, what is customer success? How do you define that?
Yeah, it's a great question. And it's got a lot of different answers depending on who you talk to. But really, customer success grew out of the move to subscription from perpetually licensed software. Back in 10, 15 years ago, Salesforce was really the company that pioneered it. But it's this idea that if we sell our products on a subscription basis, that we have to do a little bit more work. We have to get a little bit more intimate and engage deeper with the client so that we know they're getting the value that they're paying for, because they can go away after a year or two. Back when we used to sell perpetually licensed software, we sold the whole thing up front, and we got a big chunk of revenue on our P&L as a result of that. But now it actually matters that customers stay with us a long time in the software world, because everything's bought on subscription. And we usually don't make money, real money, margin money, until the second or third year of our relationship with the client. So retention is just tantamount to success for a modern software company.
What I find amazing about that, and I often tell people that'll listen to me, is that in the traditional business model, we would sell something, we get that check up front, and we actually never cared if somebody used our product or not. And all of a sudden now we really care.
Right. And you might not have ever known, right? The old style software, the perpetually licensed stuff, was usually sitting on premise too, and somebody locked in somebody's data center. And now with the advent of cloud and software as a service, where it's just one big application in the cloud most of the time, we can actually see what our customers are doing. So we can understand if they're adopting the most valuable portions of our product. We can tell just how much they're using the product itself, and we can intervene. We can use all that data as triggers to intervene if we're not seeing adoption take off the way that we know it should, for that customer to be successful and for them to get the value that we sold out of it. I love that you talked about value right in your intro, because pricing to me is the fundamental piece of it's how we exchange value with our clients. They get business return, we get dollars as a software company. And so yeah.
When I think about pricing, I always think the words: we need to create value, we need to communicate value, we need to capture value. And what customer success seems to me to be doing is making sure that our clients actually receive the value that we promised to them, or we told them that they were going to get when they bought in, or maybe way more than they ever thought they were going to get.
Yeah. You said create, communicate, capture. I think there's something in the SaaS world between communicate and capture, which is, I wish I could think of something that started with a C to keep it consistent there. but it's something like ensure, right? Ensure value, ensure receipt of value, because we can communicate the value. That's part of the sales process. But after we close the business and bring that customer in, then we really have to engage with them and make sure that they are utilizing our product to the fullest extent, getting that value every day, and that they know they're getting it. Because sometimes they're getting it and they don't realize they're getting it. So part of the communication, back to your point, is making sure that they don't just understand what the value proposition is, but that they understand that they're getting value out of it after they start utilizing the product.
Yeah, just so I don't have to add another C, I'm going to bundle that into capturing value, so that if we're providing value, if we're making sure they're using our product, then we're continuing to capture the value that we're delivering. So that's pretty cool. So tell us about Customer Imperative. What do they do?
Yeah, so Customer Imperative, I launched the company about 2.5 years ago after, as you put it, my last real job came to an end, which was sort of a turning point in my career where I decided to go out on my own. And so I started Customer Imperative as a one-man shop consulting, working with B2B SaaS companies who wanted to focus on customer-centric growth strategies, commonly called customer success. And as you and your listeners may know, there's a lot of different facets to that. There's roles and responsibilities, there's organizational design, there's process design, there's systems and automation. But what we do today, so fast forward 2.5 years, we have just right at 10 people on our team today. And what we do is we engage with clients and we deliver what we call technology-enabled customer success operations. And what that means is that we actually help our clients provide the dashboards, we provide the data, we provide the metrics that they need to run the customer side of their business. And we do that as a service for them today. And so all the other strategic pieces that I did initially when I started the company 2.5 years ago, we still do a lot of that work as well. But what we found over time is that if that work didn't end up in a system and automated and real processes built around it, it was just shelfware. It was just strategy consulting work that got put on a shelf. So we've really pivoted over to taking those strategies, putting them all the way in the system, and then even helping our clients run those processes, renewals, customer health scoring, adoption metrics and analysis, and that type of thing. So we work with a lot of vendors in the space to bring those solutions to our clients and help with automation, scaling, and operations.
And when you say you put them all in a system, does that mean it's a software application or a framework and a process that we're going to walk them through and teach them? Describe the system.
Yeah. So you've probably seen this as well. I'm sure your listeners have. There's a lot of processes that get run in a lot of companies that are backed by spreadsheets, right? And one of the things that we like to say, if it's not actually in a system that's designed to facilitate that process and to inspect that process, then it's not really a process. Okay, so a spreadsheet's is not the be-all end-all solution. It's a great place to start when you're designing a process, but it's not the be-all end-all solution. So imagine if I had 1,000 clients and I had to manage the renewals for that 1,000 clients, and I was trying to do that out of a spreadsheet. I'd have limited visibility into it. My peers in the organization, my management team, my board, we'd be doing a lot of ad hoc stuff there, right? And so we think it's a lot more valuable to put a system in place. Today, companies use Salesforce.com, they use other CRM platforms, and then there are even tools that are more specific than that, just for customer success and customer engagement, renewal management, upsell management, that you can put in place to manage those processes so that you get high visibility, you get adoption across the organization, you get all the tools and workbooks and kinds of techniques that you need built into a platform that is fit and finished for doing those kind of jobs in a software company.
Nice. And there are always trade-offs. When you go to a package system like that, then it does what it does, where if I'm using Excel, it does anything.
Yeah.
But the problem is not everybody's creative enough to say, what's the anything? You need some set of intelligence that says, oh, here are the right things to look at. And then you also want the flexibility to say, okay, now I want to go look at something different. Can we go look at that? What does that look like?
Right. Exactly.
So when you think of customer success, I'm going to slightly change the topic. Does that include onboarding?
It does, yeah. So, one of the first things that we typically do with our clients is an end-to-end journey map. We do a mapping exercise where we walk a cross-functional team, meaning the marketing people, the sales people, the customer success, onboarding, account management, product. We walk all those folks through an activity where we actually map it out on a wall or on a whiteboard, what the customer journey is today, where the touch points are with the customer, what we think the customer is feeling, thinking, and hearing through that process. And then we design ways to make it better. So we always start with a journey mapping process because that is that's a way to flesh out where the gaps are in your customer experience and where they have opportunity to fail. For SaaS companies, and your SaaS listeners will definitely identify with this, the onboarding experience is the number one most critical experience that you can have or that you can get right for your customers, because they need to get to success. We call it time to value. They need to get quick time to value. They've made an investment. They've probably paid an upfront fee to begin working with your company. And so it's really important that we find some way to give them value within 30, 60 days so that they're starting to feel, the presence of the value that they were communicated during the sales process. So yeah, onboarding is absolutely a critical piece of customer success. And I could talk to you for hours about it, but I'll stop there and see what other questions come out of it.
Well, I want to try to tie this back to pricing for a second, and then we're going to go into some other customer success issues. When I think of SaaS companies, and I teach people how subscription companies are different than traditional companies, we have these three revenue buckets that we care a lot about. In traditional companies, all I care about is winning new customers. But now that I'm in SaaS, I need to win customers, I need to keep customers, I need to grow customers. Customer success isn't really related to winning customers or customer acquisition, other than you would say positive testimonials, referrals, references, things like that would be really helpful for customer acquisition.
Exactly.
Most people think of customer success for the retention side. I want to keep my customers. But I've seen research that says customer success is actually more valuable in the growth or expansion piece. How do I get people to buy more from us? And that feels like it fits right into the journey map that you talk about. How do you relate to this keeping and growing my current customers?
Oh man, you're hitting on sort of the core of our belief system now. So when you talk about just keeping your customers, I'll get a little technical with you here for a second. We call that gross retention. Okay, so how much of it's like same store sales for folks who use that metric in more of a retail setting. Then we have something else called net retention. That is, how much of my revenue did I keep from last year and from the same cohort of customers, and then also how much did I add to that same cohort of customers? Not new logos, but those existing logos, okay? So we look at net retention as really the metric that customer success should and can and should be focused on. If you look at some of the most interesting SaaS companies in the publicly traded space right now, I'll throw a couple examples out there. Zendesk. There's another company called PagerDuty that's just recently filed an S1. I don't know if they're live on the exchange yet. But if you look at these companies, they have a gross retention rate in the 95 plus percentile rate, which is fantastic in and of itself, right? If you look at their net retention metrics, they're in the 130, 140, 150% net retention rate area. And what that means is that these companies are growing at 50%, 30%, 40% year over year before they even add another logo, okay? So the power of that from a compounding perspective is just phenomenal. And that's why you see so much value being created in SaaS companies who fit that profile. I'm working with a SaaS company right now who has the same exact kind of metrics, and it's a very exciting place to be because the growth is just sort of feeding itself. And that growth can come in a couple of ways. One, by upselling, new business units, new departments within the organization. It could come from expanded usage or more transactions. You could educate me much more on the different types of pricing models that are out there in terms of the different tariffs that we apply. But growth can come in a number of different ways, additional seat licenses. And so customer success is uniquely positioned within an organization to be able to help identify those opportunities to expand. And in fact, that is where the primary value of customer success lives. If they're not doing that, then I would question why you even have a customer success team to begin with.
I love that answer. I spent a big chunk of I put together a subscription value management course, and a portion of that talks about how to calculate net dollar retention and what does it look like. And I study Thomas Tunga's. He uses some of those same numbers that you're using. The one that I like to pull out all the time because they just went public and everybody knows them is Zoom. And Zoom has a 142% net dollar retention rate, which is just incredible.
Yeah. Yeah. Can you imagine growing 40% year over year without adding another client, another customer?
Yes. Yes.
It's fantastic.
And yet they're still adding customers.
Exactly. Yeah. Right.
And just to educate the listeners a little bit, there are 4 basic ways that you can get more money from your current customers. One is you can raise their prices, obviously. 2, you could increase usage, which Jay just talked about. We could do upsell. So think of that as we've got good, better, best. How do I get them from good to better or better to best? And you could do cross-sell, meaning I've built a great relationship with them. Now they would take other products that we're currently selling to our current customers. I mean, those are the only 4 ways I could think of that you could get more money from your current customer base. Pretty awesome.
Yeah, that's great.
There might be more, but I haven't thought of them yet.
Well, if you haven't thought of them, they probably don't exist, Mark.
I'm not sure about that. So I love that we're on the same page here. This fits so well. What do you see? Are most companies, when you first walk in the door, are they measuring net dollar retention today, or is that a metric that you have to share with them and teach them?
Any CFO that's worked in the SaaS space for any amount of time is going to already be thinking about and calculating that metric. What we more commonly see is that the teams who are responsible for driving those metrics aren't necessarily mapping their activities, their day-to-day, their initiatives. They're not necessarily mapping those to those metrics, and they don't understand necessarily where they have leverage to move those metrics. So going down a little bit of a rabbit hole here, one of the ways we help with that, or we help them think about that, is segmenting the customer base. So you might not be able to move your net retention number for every segment in your customer base, but there may be certain segments where you have a lot of opportunity, and so that's what you want to go build your processes and your playbooks around.
You just keep teeing me up here, Jay. Thank you.
Yeah, it feels like we should work together more.
So it turns out that there are 3 different value levers other than building the right products, right? There are 3 basic value levers that product managers, product marketers, companies have that they can pull. And one of those is that market segment, right? How do I focus in on the right market segments? How do I choose the right segment for the right opportunity? Maybe we get more and more focused over time. So that market segment is a really big deal. And then the other 2, I'll just toss them out real fast, but one is pricing metrics. What are we going to charge for? And then the last one is packaging. How do we put the right features into the right packages to get to the right value points? But all of these are challenging, hard, valuable, important, and interesting. Let's jump back to customer success, though, because I find this so fascinating. What's the usage of usage data?
What's the usage of usage data? It's a very insightful.
I assume there's hundreds of ways.
Yeah, and actually, that is one of the things that makes usage data so, or usage metrics in general, so hard for folks, because it's really is a choose your own adventure book. I think we think about it in a few ways. One is what are the basic capabilities that your system has, the high value features, the high value functionality of the system that you can make sure that your clients are using. What we often see is that it's not a lack of usage data on the part of our customers. It's a lack of really honing in on that 1 or 2 or 3 most special things about our product that our clients are not doing. And so, there's a ton of data, but there's just no insights there. And then there's nothing to trigger a behavior or an action off of downstream. So that's one thing, but it is very powerful if you can look at your customer, look at your customer journey, understand from your customer's perspective what success looks like, where do they start to get the outcomes from using your product, and then map that back to some kind of data point that you track in the system. So that's number one. I think the other one, number 2 for us is thinking in terms of benchmarking. So if you have data that you can normalize across your entire customer base and even define metrics for your industry as a SaaS provider, let's say I'm in real estate or event management, there are metrics and there are benchmarks that are unique to each of those industries. And if I can sort of normalize those, I can use them in a number of ways. One, I can use them to help me understand if my clients, how they're performing relative to their peers. And that's a really strategic way for me to then engage with that client on a customer success manager basis. And CSM, customer success manager, is sort of the new terminology that we use to describe this person who's the point of contact for a customer if there's a named contact. But they need strategic ways to engage because they're not a support rep, right? They should know what the product does, but they need a strategic handle to hold on to have a business discussion with their clients. That's what we really want. So those benchmark metrics can be really, really helpful. And then the second way you can use a benchmark metric is in your marketing process, right? It's part of generating awareness for what performance looks like. And maybe your prospects can't even tell you what that metric is because they don't have the data and the systems to do it. But you can not only tell them that they need that metric, you can tell them what good looks like and how they can get good by coming over your company. So those are a couple of ways that I think usage data is useful from our perspective.
I want to tie that back to a concept that I often talk about in pricing, and that is value and how do our customers get value or perceive value. One of the things I often do with clients when we're trying to do a pricing metric, I want to know what we're going to charge for. I'll often ask the customer to answer the following question. Your customer fills in the following blanks. I love your product because my blank went from blank to blank. So there's some metric. My processing time went from an hour to 10 minutes. My number of clicks onto my web page went from 1,000 to 10,000. Whatever it is, there's some number that they say, oh my gosh, this is why I love your product. And I try to tie pricing and packaging and those types of things back to that. But I could easily see you taking the exact same concept and saying, I want to tie usage to that. How do I make sure that people are using the product in a way that delivers what they're trying to get in the most effective way? Does that make sense?
It does make sense. And I think the holy grail is if all three align. The sort of metric from X to Y, the pricing around it, and then us as a customer success function driving the adoption of that capability.
Yeah, I think that's absolutely spot on. Usage feels so powerful, and yet I don't see companies using it in the ways that it could be used, right? In all the ways that it could be so powerful for them. So,
yep.
All right, Jay, we're going to have to start to wrap this up, but I always end with this question. What's one piece of advice that you would give our listeners that you think could have a big impact on their business?
Oh, man, that's a big question. So, I think, one of the things, we try to espouse in our company is we one of our values is really think large, think globally, but act pragmatically. And so I think, one way that I like to see companies work is really in more of an iterative fashion, take off small chunks of work, test new ideas, iterate quickly, and build a culture of rapid thought, testing, and improvement process. Because, the days of planning ahead and building a big top-down plan are just, they're hard, they're gone, right? And we need to be much more agile in the way that we respond to competition, in the way that we roll out our products to our clients. And just that agility and speed means so much. We work with a lot of private equity backed companies, and as your audience is probably aware, private equity owners of any company, they want to drive a return on a timeline, right? And that's not their only goal always, but it's really key that you move fast and move in a really agile way. So I think that's one thing that we try to work with our clients on, and the folks who get it right, I think, accomplish a lot more a lot faster.
Yeah, and I think everybody wants to grow quickly. The idea of testing and seeing what works and then implementing, that just makes all the sense in the world. Jay, thank you so much for your time today. If anyone wants to contact you, how can they do that?
Yeah, sure. My email, you feel free to shoot me an email, jay@customerimperative.com. And then you can also hit me up on LinkedIn, Jay Nathan. I'm sure there are other Jay Nathans out there, but I'm one of the few. So.
One of the few? Wow. All right. Episode 33 is finished. My favorite part of today's podcast. Let's see. I really liked the simple way that Jay described net dollar retention. That was pretty powerful. What was your favorite part? Please let us know in the comments or wherever you download and listen to the podcast. And while you're at it, would you please give us a 5-star review? These are very helpful to us. If you have any questions or comments about the podcast or about pricing, feel free to email me at mark@impactpricing.com. Now, go make an impact.